Okay, so let's dive into this discussion that's hot on the internet in the content management space, and it's about the blog post of Lee Robinson, who worked at Vercel as DevRel, now working at Cursor, and he published recently a blog post about how they ditched the content management system for cursor.com and changed the workflow, the content management workflow basically, to an agentic workflow. I think this is a very interesting discussion, and in this video I want to dive into the whole discussion and also the reaction of Sanity and also what's going on Hacker News, and I will also give a little bit of my insights and my opinion about what's going on. For full transparency, I'm the founder of Nodehive, so we are building a multi-site content management solution. So basically we are a direct competitor to Sanity and Contentful and others. So Nodehive is open source. That's certainly a cool thing, and check it out if you're interested in building multi-site content management systems. But let's dive into the discussion. So, coding agents and complexity budgets. I will read through the blog post and I will, on the way, give my insights and maybe my opinion about it. So, I migrated Cursor.com from a CMS to raw code and Markdown. I had estimated it would take a few weeks, but was able to finish the migration in 3 days with $260 in tokens and hundreds of agents. So that's the stage, and I think that made already a lot of people upset. Obviously, Lee is now working at Cursor, and I think one of his goals also with this blog post is just to showcase how powerful Cursor is to basically build solutions, and so it's $260 worth in tokens, obviously spent on Cursor, the Cursor platform. But there are some valid arguments, and let's dive in. Content is just code. I was eating lunch with Roman and Eric at Cursor, and we started talking about the Cursor.com website. We recently shipped a redesign, and as part of the challenge, as part of the change, all content and web pages were now built through a headless CMS. In that case, it was Sanity. We went around the table airing our grievances. The CMS wasn't working, a strong statement. We had this beautiful new website design, and yet it felt more difficult than ever to ship new content. Question is, for whom it's more difficult to ship content? Obviously, if the CMS is not working, in my experience, if you over-engineer the CMS integration, yes, then it's not working. But we'll see how that goes. Previously, we had at Cursor and asked it to modify the code and content. But now we introduced a new CMS abstraction in between. Everything became a bit more clunky. We went back to clicking through UI menus versus asking agents to do things for us. All right, so you can just kick off the Cursor agent to do modify code and content, fair enough. With AI and coding agents, the cost of an abstraction has been higher. I asked them, do we really need a CMS? Will people care if they have to use a chatbot to modify content versus a GUI? We could eliminate so much complexity if we just went back to raw code. Yeah, it's a good argument. Roman asked me how long it would take to migrate the CMS back to code. My quick estimate was 1 to 2 weeks, and we'd probably hire an agency to help with it. Maybe I just haven't updated my timelines for the current state of AI, but I decided to try creating a plan in Cursor for how to migrate and then kicking off an agent to take a first pass. I was surprised by how far it got, although there was clearly much more work to do. Yeah, I mean, this is also my experience. You are very quickly in the beginning, and then, you have early good results, but then let's see how it goes on. It was not enough to nerd snipe me into taking on the migration. Here's how I ended up migrating the site over the course of a weekend. Removing complexity. The Cursor website is a standard Next.js and React app. The new version was built on top of a CMS so that non-developers could build marketing pages and writers could add new blog posts. Again, using a CMS is pretty standard for most sites. Yeah, so he's actually talking about this. So who's gonna edit content? Is it developers who know how to use Git, and or are there actually marketing people who are not tech people at all? I mean, you can expect that Cursor is a very high engineer technical company, and probably even marketing people can use Git. For many teams, the cost of a CMS abstraction is worth it. They need to have a portal where writers or marketers can log in, click a few buttons, and change the content. It's been like this since the dawn of time. Yes, that's right. What is under discussed is the amount of technical complexity needed to integrate a headless CMS well into a modern website. I'm familiar with all the products and solutions, and yes, some do a very good job of hiding that complexity. It's still there though, even if behind an NPM package. It's actually true. So building a website is not an easy task, whether it's headless or not. Whether it's using, let's say, MD files or a service like Sanity or Nodehive. And there was always the goal to hide complexity, and the complexity is still there. That's how it is. Here's a short list of hidden complexity. If you are not as interested in the technical details, you can skip these over. So this is interesting, and I think there is a lot into the details. I won't dive into all the points, but let's maybe pick user management, because this is an interesting thing. The first and most immediate issue is having user management in multiple places. In a world where designers are developers, it's not a stretch to have your marketing team in GitHub as well. You already have GitHub SSO and RBAC set up anyway. Well, this is an assumption I think is not true in our agency reality. For our clients which are not in the technology space, they don't have GitHub accounts. So this is definitely an assumption that is not correct, even though the argument that having user management in multiple places is still valid. New team members would try to make a change to the site and then have to ask, can I get added to the CMS, please? Yes, enterprise tiers and SCIM can solve this, but complexity. We added our marketing team to GitHub instead, our one account management system. Yeah, it's a pragmatic decision, and he's just making his argument that there is hidden complexity, and I kind of agree, even though the assumption that GitHub is available for most of the clients is actually wrong in my thinking. Preview changes. Let's dive into this, because this is maybe specifically interesting depending on the headless CMS solution you use. You want to have really fast marketing sites, right? That means you would ideally pre-render as much as possible ahead of time, so you don't make your visitors compute a new version of the page every visit. Yes, I know caching, pre-rendering is a form of caching. That's true. So the more you can pre-render, the better, I agree. Speaking of removing complexity, statically pre-rendered pages removes a ton of operational complexity. You don't want your marketing site going down when the CMS has a blip in availability. So we want static pages. Well, I kind of agree that obviously you want performance, that's fine. If you only go with statical pre-rendered pages, and he's actually not talking about it at all, you have to pre-render it. So every deployment takes a lot of time. So every little change in content, if you go through Git, will trigger a redeployment. You can optimize the deployment, that's for sure. But actually, this is also adding complexity. Let's go through, and then I will give my opinion. Having your cake, static pages, and eating it too using a CMS is doable, but just kind of annoying. ? In Next.js, you have draft mode. There's even a great integration with Vercel where you can toggle into draft mode from the Vercel toolbar. This allows you to dynamically fetch the latest content from the CMS for example, a server-side render when you are making changes to the site while still keeping production fast and statically rendered. Great. So this is exactly how we do our projects. We are not using the draft mode of Next.js, so we Node.hive, we have our own solution. And this is actually, I'm not a sanity expert, but this is actually what I would expect from a headless content management system to have this solved, right? So it seems that with the implementation they had at cursor.com and with, you know, the way they handled basically dynamic content and with caching that was not an ideal build. So I'm not actually, I wouldn't agree with this point, but this is eating a lot of complexity budget. Kind of true. I mean, the complexity is actually solved if you buy a solution which solved that. So the complexity is solved. So it's not an issue anymore. Now, if you want people to view URLs of draft content, they need to be logged into Vercel or have Vercel accounts. That's why we don't use that. Again, doable, but now we are another enterprise and SCM account management solution. Yeah. Kind of true. When the content is code, you can create a PR, get a link with your changes and share it with anyone. No login is required, simplicity. Well, yeah, that's true if you are a developer and if you know what a PR is. Most of marketing people don't. So this is really, yeah, from a very technical perspective. But anyway, he's making up his argument that, yes, there is a lot of complexity. Yeah, I won't go into these. I think there was this argument about the cost. I don't know why it's so expensive. I mean, obviously, this is definitely the pricing models of the various players, including Sanity and also Vercel, I guess. But anyway, doing the migration. So this is the interesting part. I created a plan with Opus 4.5. Cursor turned with a few clarifying questions. I suggested something which was obvious, but I didn't immediately think of. We already have an API key to fetch content from the CMS. Rather than fumbling through menus and download things, we can create a series of scripts to export the content, validate the structure, convert it into Markdown and files in the repository, and then upload the images and videos to object storage. So this is kind of interesting because he's actually using the benefit of a structured headless CMS to build up his solution. So if the content would not have been available through an API, I guess the project would take slightly faster. But so this was definitely helpful to have a headless CMS to actually do the migration. I got 80% of the way there with probably 10 agents run, a cursor installed and removed dependencies and ran scripts and built out pages of content. However, as with most things in engineering, the last 20% takes most of the time, but it was too late. I was already nerd snipped. I needed to complete the task. Some of the pages were not an exact match, so I ran this agent on every page. The features page is not a perfect match to production. Review how we exported CMS data for the homepage. Re-export the full contents of the features page, including all subcomponents, images, and backgrounds. Use the app browser agent to take screenshots and keep iterating until the local version is perfect match. The first attached image is local, second is production. Actually, this is an interesting approach. If you do migrations, if you already have an existing solution, you want just to kind of re-platform it. And yeah, here is AI very, very powerful. And at least this worked, or it seems that this worked for him very well. So once I started kicking off agents, I started doing a much more broad refactor of all the code base patterns that were annoying. It was also a nice chance to use sub-agents coming in the next version. So you clearly see it's promoting the product, but that's fine. I worked with Opus to create the plan for the API shape I wanted and then asked Cursor to run the sub-agent to make the changes in many different calls sites in parallel. Much faster. So this is a screenshot. I won't go into that. So I just want to focus a little bit here. So doing the migration and also removing complexity. Kind of agree, if you don't have to support a headless CMS and do all the data handling, data loading, I think you can completely go with a different architecture in the front end application, and it will be much easier. That's for sure. Happy little accidents. I was so excited to remove complexity that I deleted Storybook entirely. Storybook has some nice features, but we were barely using it. Plus, with the cursor browser and being able to visually edit things, I don't really see the value as much anymore. Plus, a lot of the dependency being downloaded and installed on every machine and CI run, when I could instead build this simple version very quickly. Yeah, that's actually an interesting point, and this is something we were also talking in our agency recently. Do we still need Storybook if we can build kind of these playground pages very, very quickly ourselves? We could not find an answer yet in our case. We also tend to think to ditch it, because who's actually going back to Storybook to use it? Well, I still like Storybook to have an index of all components available. Sometimes in the CMS itself, you only need some of the properties of the components you have in Storybook, and having Storybook as basically as a catalog of components is still valuable, I think. But yeah, I mean, you can simply remove it. I'm actually curious if Lee would still see that in 2, 3, 4 months, because at one point you actually want to know what components do we have in the code base. And then sure, you can ask an agent, sure, you can rebuild your playground, but why not with the kind of industry standard Storybook, and you can onboard new developers and say, hey, look into Storybook, this is what we have. So I'm not sure if this argument is made, but I think it's also kind of pushing the new cursor UI and to basically promote the product. Fair enough. I also still wanted to have a GUI for managing assets on top of object storage. This was 3 or 4 prompts with the agent to get something decent and workable. It's the minimum viable feature set. Sure, there's a lot more I could do, but I don't need that. So he created a asset management kind of UI. So you can drag and drop files, and then he could basically copy the URL and use it in the markdown files for media management. And yeah, I mean, for me, this looks very like a content management system, no? But instead of using an existing solution, which is also battle-proofed, secure, and also under maintenance by a fleet of people, he built his own solution. I mean, why not? You can do that. But yeah, I'm not sure if this is really, secure. I mean, of course, you can build up a solution like that in a couple of prompts. Well, I mean, this was his approach, and it looks nice, and it seems to be usable. Another benefit of having your content in code is that all changes flow through Git. This was nice in the past for reverts or figuring out who changed things, but it's incredibly helpful for coding agents to dig through autonomously. Yeah, I kind of agree with this point. Obviously, if you have Git control, you have all the benefits of Git. Even though most CMSs track content in revisions, so you can also go back, see who changed what, even in a very visual way and in dashboards. This is at least what we support at Notehive. But yeah, I get that. I also like that. But it's, again, if you are a developer, this is a very natural workflow. If you're not a developer, tech person, this can be very, very confusing. So let's wrap up the results. This is mind-blowing to me. Cursor wrote the script to use our APIs and calculate the usage. So this is the cost, these are the agent requests, manual tab changes, and these were the commits. See lots of lines deleted, so code base is definitely smaller and obviously less complex. What I previously thought would take weeks and maybe an agency to help with the slog work was done in $160 of tokens. More importantly, the migration has already been worth it. The first day after, I merged the fix to the website from a cloud agent on my phone. The next day, an engineer shipped the feature across the product and marketing side in the same PR. We are saving thousands of dollars in CDN usage by moving to lower cost object storage. A side effect, build times are 2 times faster by cutting out network I/O, going to the CMS when pre-rendering pages. The cost of abstraction with AI is very high. Over abstraction was always annoying and a code smell, but now there's an easy solution: spend tokens. It was well worth the money to delete complexity from our code base, and it really paid for itself. Imagine what this story would look like across the entire economy. Coding agents are helping teams try their wildest ideas and fix tech debt that was buried deep in the backlog. I'm excited for a world of abundant, high-quality software and hope that Cursor can continue to play a role in making it happen. Yeah, so this last paragraph is really about pushing Cursor as a good solution for building software products. So that's fair enough. Yeah, so quite a wild ride. Ditching a new website built on Sanity CMS and using agents and reduce complexity, and now thinking this is what the whole industry should do. Well, we'll see what the reaction was. So somebody posted this on Hacker News. There was a lot of comments, over 100 comments until today, and they're very interesting. There were very interesting answers. I won't go into that. Look that up. It's a very interesting discussion. But there was a answer from Sanity because Cursor used Sanity as their CMS, and somebody of Sanity wanted to react to that and also give their context. So it's worth reading what they have to say. So the quote: "You should never build a CMS. Lee Robinson migrated Cursor.com off Sanity. He made good points. Here's what he missed." So he's also a developer, a Vercel kind of community and education person. We are just going to call it up. Until recently, Cursor.com was powered by Sanity as its CMS. Then Lee Robinson sat down and spent 340 agent requests and around $260 to migrate the content and set up 2 markdown files, GitHub, Vercel, and a vibe-coded media management interface. This is just what I explained before. Everything is now in markdown files, and GitHub as basically the platform, Vercel as the hosting front end, and the vibe-coded media management UI. He did a great write-up of the blog post we just read. He was classy and didn't name us. Okay, nice. Of course, when a high-profile customer moves off your product and the story resonates well with builders you respect, I think this is even on Twitter. There was also discussion on Twitter. The weirdest twist here is that we sort of agree with Lee's take. He has a lot of great points. The conversation around complexity and abstraction that a headless CMS brings reflects real frustration. The way things have been done in the past decade deserves criticisms. So he kind of admits that there are valid points. And just before, that's also my point of view. There is certainly complexity that is there. And there was a lot of complexity in the early days of single page applications. Anyway, but at least post doesn't tell the full story. We see what people are trying to solve when it comes to content every day. We live and breathe this CMS stuff. So let us add some context. What Lee got right: the headless CMS industry built complexity that didn't deliver proportional value for many. This is true. Preview workflows are clunky. Draft modes, toolbar toggles, account requirements just to see what your content looks like before it goes live. Have to add data attributes everywhere to connect frontends with backend fields feels unnecessary. Real friction for something that feels it should be simple. All fragmentation is annoying. CMS login, GitHub login, hosting provider login, 3 systems to get a preview working. Their CDN costs was largely caused by hosting a video from our file storage. It's not an ideal way to host videos in front of Cursor's massive audience. We should have made it more obvious that there are better and cheaper ways, like using the Mox plugin. So it seems that lots of the cost of the hosting cost was just one or a couple of videos. And we know that as well. If you serve a video, for example, from Vercel, it will cost a lot of bandwidth. And if this video is seen hundreds of thousands of times, the cost just adds up. So why not provide it through a video hosting provider like Mox, Vimeo, even YouTube would have maybe removed lots of the cost. 300,000 lines of code was removed in exchange of 43,000 new ones. That sounds great. We love getting rid of code too. And here's the one that actually matters. AI agent couldn't easily reach content behind authenticated APIs. When your coding agent can grab your code base but can't query your CMS, that's a real problem. Lee felt this friction and responded to it. We did it too, and the new very capable MCP server is out. So basically what Lee is kind of looking for is the ability to use Cursor or any basically agentic coding tool to interact with the content backend. The most easier part is obviously markdown files, but now we have MCP servers. So it seems that Sanity just released the MCP server. There is also an MPC server for Nodehive, a Drupal MPC server. So you can easily create content, edit content, update content, and change configuration. So this is kind of solved, but not established in the CMS space to basically use a outside, let's say, a chat UI. It could be Cursor, it could be Claude, to basically interact with a backend like a content management system like Sanity or Nodehive. These complaints are valid. We are not going to pretend otherwise. What Lee actually built. So this is kind of the headline of this post. What Lee actually built, spoiler, a CMS. Here's the thing though, read this post carefully and look at what he ended up with. An asset management GUI built with 3 to 4 points, which to be fair is impressive. User management via GitHub permission, version control via Git, localization tooling, a content model markdown formatter with specific fields. And what this is, it's a CMS. So these are CMS features distributed across NPM scripts, GitHub permission system, Vercel infrastructure. The features exist because the problems are real. You can delete the CMS, but you can't delete the need to manage assets, control who can publish what, track changes, and structure your content for reusability and distribution at scale. Give it 6 months, the bespoke tooling will grow, the edge cases will multiply, someone will need to schedule a post. Someone will need a preview on mobile, someone will want to revert a change from 3 weeks ago, and Git revlog won't cut it. The simple system will create complexity because content management is complex. This is exactly what I said before. I think content management is complex, stays complex, whether you simplify, obviously try to simplify it as Lee does, you will end up in lots of edge cases, and having a strong core, whether it's Sanity or Nodehive, where there are established concepts to manage complex content requirements, is a good strategy, even though it's maybe a little bit frustrating in the first place, because you cannot act as fast as possible when you basically just reduce the complexity. We'll see how that ends. Even with agents who were mostly trained within the constraints of these patterns. What breaks at scale? So they give a bit more context. Lee's model is clean. 1 markdown file equals 1 page. Simple, grabbable. This works until it doesn't. And the thing is, content is not equal like page trap. What happens when your pricing lives in 3 places? The pricing page, the comparison table, the footer call to action. In Markdown land, you update 3 files, or you build a templating system that pulls from a canonical source, at which point you've invented content references, at which point you're building a CMS. So very, very valuable point. This is the whole thing. The whole idea about a headless CMS is having content in a structured way, and then you can reuse it, content in several places within one website. But think of it, if you have multiple front-end digital experiences, you want to be able to reference these contents, and so you actually update only the content once, then it's updated everywhere. At least that's the goal. That was always the goal of going headless. With Markdown files, as mentioned here, it's also possible to do. But yeah, you're going to reinvent a lot of things, and it's going to break. What happens when legal needs to update the compliance language that appears on 47 pages? You grab for all strings and replace it, except the string has slight variations, except someone reworded it slightly on the enterprise page, except now you need to verify each change because regex can't understand intent. Now you are building a CMS. Well, I'm actually not sure, because using agents, and agents are actually very, very good to find these strings. And yeah, I wouldn't agree with this. With this discussion here. I think there are very good agents that actually do that very well. And obviously, you always need human in the loop. So you cannot just say, hey, I publish it. Even if you have a headless CMS, it totally makes sense that you review your contents and your different front ends. But the main point here is one source, single source of truth, updated everywhere. What happens when you want to know where this product is mentioned? You can grab for the product name. You can't grab the content that references this product entity because Markdown doesn't have entities. It has strings. Valuable point. Working with references in Markdown is hard. Suddenly you are passing thousands of files on every build to check for broken links that you can't query. And yes, you are building a CMS. Structured content breaks the content equals page assumption on purpose. A product is a document. A landing page document references that product, and both are rendered together on the website and in an app, and the support article for that product. When the product information changes, that changes is reflected in all the places. And when you need to find every mention, you query the references, not the strings. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. That's the whole purpose why you want to have structured content in the first place. Engineers understand this. It's normalization. In the same reason, you don't store customer name as string. In every order row, you store customer ID and join. Markdown files are the content equivalent of their denormalized strings everywhere. It works for small data set. It becomes a maintenance nightmare at scale. I think this is a very important point here. Obviously, if you have only, let's say, 50 to maybe 100 pages Markdown files, this approach works well, or Lee's approach works well. If you have, let's assume, tens of thousands of contents, then it breaks. So this is exactly that. It works for small data sets. Git is not a content collaboration tool. Git is a version control system built for code. Code has specific properties that make Git work well. Merge conflicts are mechanical. 2 people edit the same function. The result is structural. Line-based diffing makes sense. Code is organized in lines that map the logical units. Branching maps the features. You branch to build something, then merge when it's done. Async is fine. You don't need to see someone else's changes until they push. Content has different properties. Merge conflicts are semantic. 2 people edited the same paragraph with different intentions. The correct merge requires understanding what both people meant. Line-based diffing is arbitrary. A paragraph rewrite shows as one changed line that actually changes everything. If you have block content like Notion, this breaks apart even more. Branching doesn't map to content workflows. I'm working on Q3 campaign, isn't a branch. It's 30 pieces of content across 12 pages with 4 people contributing. Real time matters. When your content team is distributed, I'm editing this doc needs to be visible now, not after commit or push, even more so with AI automation and agents in the mix. None of this is Git's fault. Git solved the problem. It was built for brilliantly. Content collaboration isn't that problem. I fully agree on that. So this is when you have a team of content people and they need to prepare content. Obviously, you not only prepare one page, you typically work on a content improvement, which includes many, many pages. And you always want to have the latest stage ideally in real time. And yeah, it's definitely not like code. You could think it as code if you're looking in a very in a very technical point of view. So I wouldn't completely disagree with that. But if you have true communication going on, true content management, and not only, documentation write-ups, for example, I think it is not the right tool to work with it. So we know this because every team that scales content on Git builds the same workaround. Log files or Slack conversation to run simultaneous editing. I'm working on this, don't touch it. Announcements, elaborate PR reviews, processes that become bottlenecks, content freezes before launches because merge complexity is too high. Yeah, so I couldn't agree more. So if you go with Git, you add a bunch of content editors. I think you just put the complexity outside the, let's say, the CMS, the content editing, and it will be a mess and it will be very chaotic if you have a reasonable size of content. Sounds familiar? These are problems CMSs were built to solve: real-time collaboration, conflict-free editing, workflow states that aren't Git branches. Even though I have to also say that we as an agency, we do a lot of content management websites for smaller and bigger clients. And also for bigger clients, it's not the case that you have every day 1,000 pages of changes. So this is not the normal case. The normal case is, of course, you have a content schedule, you update content all the time, but it's quite controllable. So what this argument kind of is true, but it's only true for very large-scale organizations. It's specifically true for large-scale organizations. For smaller and mid projects, this is most of the time not a continuous problem or a problem that happens all the time. Why agents can grab only works up to a point. Lee's core argument, AI agents can now grab the code base, so content should live in the code base. This sounds reasonable until you think about what grab actually does. It's string matching, pattern finding. It's great for finding all files containing X. It's not great for all blog posts mentioning feature Y, published after September, products with price bigger than 100 that are in stock, content tagged enterprise that hasn't been translated to German yet, the 3 most recent case studies in finance category. Here's what that last one looks like in Grok. Well, okay, they're kind of now making up their products. Well, I kind of disagree. I think, of course, agent can do grep now, and this is one of the ways agents can save basically tokens. But of course, you can give full markdown files or even all the markdown files to the context. And then the AI is very well in finding all the nuances in the contents. So grepping code or markdown files is only a way to save tokens, and most of the time it's good enough to use grep approach. But as I said before, certainly it's good enough. You can put more context in it, which will cost more tokens, but it's possible. Try writing that as a grep command against markdown files. You can't. Yeah, this is a little bit too technical. You'd need to parse formatter, understand your date format, resolve the category to references, handle the sorting, limit the results, at which point you've built a query engine. Yes, it's true, again, if you have thousands of contents, but yeah, with now, for example, Claude Skills, you can build a skill that looks up the content you're searching for. So I would even consider that as kind of solved. Structured content with a real query language is what agents actually need to reason about content. Markdown files are less queryable than a proper content API, not more. The irony here is thick. Lee's argument for moving to code is that agents can work with code. But agents are better at working with structured data and APIs than they are at parsing arbitrary files, formats, and grabbing for the strings. That's not a limitation of current AI, that's just how information retrieval works. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Actually, here, this is a very good point. Agents, as mentioned here, can work very well with structured data. So it's certainly much more efficient. However, it doesn't mean that working with unstructured data doesn't work. LLMs is all about unstructured data, right? So but it's more efficient. That's the point here. Yeah. So we need MCP servers, APIs that LLMs can use to also work with content management systems. Here's what we think Lee got backwards. The solution is to my agent can't access my CMS, isn't delete the CMS. It gives you agent access to the CMS. It's give your agent access to the CMS. It was also bad timing. Our MCP server wasn't good enough when Lead tried it. But we fixed it. Our new MCP server is out now. Your coding agent can now create new content projects, query your content, create documents, update schemas, manage releases, blah, blah, blah. So this is kind of marketing talk. But yeah, this is the point. Now there are all these nice MCP servers out there where you can, which we can use, and they have access to all the native tools of the given CMS. So this is exactly what we do also with Drupal/Node Hive solution. So we have an MCP server and you can create content, update content, edit content very easily. Schema, queryable content from prompts. It's about 10 minutes from start to deployed. You can ask it to generate images of those cars too. So there is a video about that, and let's look at it. So I think this is, I think it's Cursor, right? So it's using Opus 4.5, create a catalog of vintage cars with fields to make model, blah, 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 some fields. And then it will connect to Sanity. It will generate the schema. And then we also generate the front end, and it's connected with the back end. So that's very powerful. I made a demo myself. It's on the channel. I will link it in the description. How I demoed that, it's I think half a year ago, and how we do that with Node Hive. It's not even creating one page, it's creating a complete website with structured content. You can also use it for content inquiries like this. Find all products missing SEO description. The agent queries your actual schema and returns actionable results, not string matches, actually documents with their field states. Add an SEO metadata object to all pages types with fields for title, blah, blah, blah. So you can actually optimize SEO and SEO metadata to at scale, which is very powerful when you have structured data on the back end, which is here the case. The agent checks your existing schema, generates compatible additions, and can deploy them. No tab switching to documentation, no copy pasting, boilerplate. This is what agents working with content actually looks like. Not grep, a query language, not editing markdown, operating on structured data through proper APIs. Not string matching, semantic understanding of your content model. Markdown is nice for LLMs, that's not the point. Here's something we should acknowledge. LLMs are good at markdown. This is what I just said, so it's kind of contradicting what they say here. It's like, okay, don't use Markdown, use API structured content. And here now they say, yes, it's all fine. They were trained on massive amounts of it. The format is token efficient compared to JSON and XML. When you ask an agent to write or edit prose, Markdown is a reasonable output format. This is real. It's part of why Lee's migration work. But there is a difference between good format for LLM IO and good format for content infrastructure. LLMs are also good at SQL. They even know Grok fairly well. When you remind them, that doesn't mean you should store your database as SQL files in Git and have agents grab them. The query language and the storage layer are different concerns. This is actually a good point. You could even argue it's a stupid thought process or a thought experiment, but in theory you could even say you could store your SQL database. So basically the tables you have on the DB in your code, right? And this is actually what Markdown files are, more or less. So they're kind of tables, well, not really, but kind of files on the file system. But this doesn't make sense, right? So you would never store an SQL database or whatever, a CSV file to Git to actually query it. It's just not efficient because these are different concerns. It doesn't make sense, right? I wrote about this 3 years ago in Smashing before LLMs change everything. The argument still holds. You can't query Markdown. Structured content is more tinkerable, and hosting content in a database doesn't mean you own it less. What's changed is that we now have agents that can work with both formats. The question is which architecture sets them up to do more. Cursor's context isn't everyone's context. Let's be fair about the scope. Cursor setup works for Cursor.com right now because their entire team writes code. Designer or developers at Cursor. This is a quote of Lee. Content has one abstraction, the website. They ship infrequently enough to Git workflows are fine. They don't need approval change, compliance audits, or role-based permissions beyond what GitHub provides. Localization is AI at build time in your company. If your company looks like this, maybe Markdown in Git is fine. Perfect. But most companies don't look like this. This is what we are seeing every day. Content needs to flow to apps, email systems, AI agents, personalization engines, not just one website. This is a very, very strong point, and this is exactly why we built NodeHive, a multi-front-end solution. Typically, you have content you want to show on several digital experiences, and you want one backend to manage all your digital experiences. You need structured data, not just prose, product specs, pricing tables, configuration, things that need to be queryable and validated. You have governance requirements, who changed this and when, needs actually audit trails, not Git blame. You need real-time collaboration, multiple people and agents working on the same content simultaneously. Git merge conflicts on prose are miserable for humans and wasteful for agents. Content operations need to scale independently of engineering, not because your team can't learn Git, but because content velocity shouldn't be bottlenecked by PR review cycles. Cursor is 50 developers shipping one product website. That context matters. So we are soon at the end. It's very interesting discussion what a CMS built for AI looks like. So this is the important and basically the final conclusion in this whole discussion. The debate shouldn't be CMS versus no CMS. It shouldn't be that discussion. There are definitely parts of traditional CMSs we should nuke into the sun with fire. WYSIWYG editors that produce garbage at HTML soup, page builders that store content as layout blobs. You can't query all hero sections if hero sections are just JSON fragments in a page blob. Webhook hell for basic content updates. Content modeling that's really just pick from these 15 field types and good luck. Revision history that tells you something changed but not what or why. We can leave these things behind without resorting to Git and Markdown. Rather, the question should be, is your content infrastructure built for AI to be both author and consumer? That means structured, no flat files, AI that can reason about typed fields and relationships, not arbitrary strings, queryable, not grabbable, real query language that understands your schema, not rejects patterns matching, Real time, not batch. Content changes shouldn't require deployment to be visible. I agree. Presentation agnostic. No hex colors in your content model. No assumption about where content renders. Separation of concerns. Least frustration was valid. I don't want to click through UIs just to update content. The answer is content infrastructure that works the way modern development does. Agents that understand your schema, queries that express intent, APIs that don't require you to build a query engines out of grep in find. Well, that's true. In the end, we need content management systems that are AI ready, right? So it's as simple as that. Where this leaves us, least post went viral because it resonated. Developers have real frustration with content management tools that were built for a different area. We know, we literally built Sanity because we were angry at the CMS industry, spite-driven development. The answer isn't to retreat to 2002 and plain text files for agents to parse. It's to build what actually solves the problem. Content infrastructure that AI can read, write, and reason about. You shouldn't build a CMS from scratch with grep, markdown files, so it's kind of repeating. The tools exist to have both ways, structured content that agents can actually query, editorial, blah, blah, blah. So it's the same. That's what we're building. Least post is a good reminder of what happens when we don't get it right. Yeah, what an interesting discussion. And kind of Sanity, and I really liked the summary on the reactions of Sanity. I agree most with the points. Yeah, it's interesting times in the CMS industry. Lots of things change. We have now AI producing code. We have AI producing content. We haven't fully figured out how the CMS integrates with these new AI agents and if all the content governance, human in the loop, real-time editing works. So there are different approaches. That's fine. I think what Lead did is a good marketing stunt, and maybe it works for them. But yeah, be cautious to now ditch your CMS. I don't think you will value that because of the points mentioned in the several blog posts now. Actually, this just inspired me to make more demo videos on how we do the AI integration in NodeHive and how the MCP integration works and how we address these issues. So if you want to see videos like that, please consider following this channel. This was a very long video, but interesting discussion. Curious what you think? Put your comments in the blog post, and so we can learn together and see what the future will bring us. See you in the next one.